Ladies and gentlemen, there's just no other way to say it. My mom knows Gangnam style. Hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Steve Miller, the internet's QiRanger, and I'd like to thank you for joining me this week here on YouTube, on iTunes, or at QiRanger.com. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this week's podcast. I have got a ton of information for you, and let's start things off always as we do with the week's news roundup. Now, last week I did mention that President Lee Myung-bak was undergoing an investigation regarding his retirement home, and prosecutors have decided to refer the matter to the appropriate authorities regarding tax discrepancies with Lee Myung-bak's eldest son, possibly because of tax evasion. That's really just sad because so many times, so many people just try to skirt the issue rather than paying what is due. I'm not saying that Lee Myung-bak's son is guilty. I'm just saying that if you look historically over time, people try to shave cents off the dollar, shall we say, and even Al Capone, that's what the federal government finally got him on back in the day in the United States. It was tax evasion. And I look at other people who file income taxes and try to creatively find ways not to pay. Shall we say, Mitt Romney making all that money but virtually paying nothing. So if this is true, it's very unfortunate and again adds to the long line of individuals in Korea specifically who have their presidency tainted with controversy. So hopefully as things move forward, if there is an acquittal in the process, that will come through very quickly, and no matter what, it will not dampen Lee Myung-bak's legacy here in Korea. Also in the news, Korea has asked Russia to send additional rocket parts for its missile. Now, over the last few years, South Korea has tried to join the space elite by sending a rocket into orbit. The first two attempts were not successful, and the third attempt was scheduled to go off earlier, but there was a defective part, and Russia makes that part. So Korea asked Russia to hurry up and manufacture and send that part down to Korea so it could fix the rocket to meet the launch window. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's going to take place because once Korea gets the part, it takes 10 days to refit the rocket. And it just doesn't look like things are going to take place. I'm recording this podcast on the 21st of November, and a date hasn't been set, and the window closes on November 24th. So looks like another launch window will have to take place possibly in December, if it's going to be taking place this year, if at all. Also, in Korea, some really disturbing news personally. A senior Buddhist monk in the Choge order, which is the largest Buddhist order in South Korea, has been accused of sexually assaulting a female visitor in her 20s during a temple stay program. If you're unfamiliar with the temple stay program, it is probably one of the largest tourist events that started during the 2002 World Cup. It's ranked number one in terms of satisfaction, and it allows visitors to live the life of a monk here in Korea. You can either go for a day, you can go for 1 day, you can go for 2 days. And to have a senior monk be accused of sexual assault really taints the program, really taints the Choge order, really taints Buddhism at its core because of the notion that we have with Buddhism as it being a pure spiritual approach to living, do no harm, live a very modest life. Now, I haven't seen a lot of updates since the story broke, and hopefully that the allegations are false, but it's still very disturbing nonetheless. And I guess lessons to be learned that no matter what religious order you partake in, whether it be Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, there could be individuals looking to take advantage of others no matter where you go. So if you are participating in a program, be careful. Also, a Korean man studying in Australia lost his finger in a racially motivated attack. Now, this is quite disturbing. This individual was abused by local police as well. The 33-year-old gentleman, who is identified by his last name Jang, reported to the Korean consulate in Melbourne that he fell victim to a knife attack by a group of teenagers back at the beginning of November. He was walking through a park with a friend, and the teenagers allegedly asked him for a cigarette. He refused, and they started assaulting him, shouting a racial slur that began with the F word and rhymes with truck. He reported that he lost the finger. The police virtually did nothing. The Victoria state government has apologized and is paying him damages. So whatever the exact specifics of the case are, it looks like it did happen, and I'm very thankful that the state level government in Australia, the state of Victoria, is owning up to the situation and providing damages. This is also not necessarily related to Korean news, but a video was making the rounds through YouTube of a French girl singing on a public bus, and various Australians also calling her a C word that rhymes with bunt and threatening harm against her and telling her to get off the bus and not that she's essentially not welcome in Australia. It's very unfortunate that there are still people in the world that feel this way towards other humans, and it's also unfortunate that Australia is getting, quite frankly, a bad rap. I have seen numerous instances while traveling throughout Australia of kindness and openness, but I've also seen the other side of the coin where people have issued racial slurs and been outright bigoted toward minorities. So hopefully this individual from Korea will be able to move on with his life and have a productive one, and that the state of Victoria will make some huge educational changes to address a more multinational society. South Korea has also been awarded the dubious honor of having the highest road fatality rate in the developed world. Now, when I say that, it's the highest in 29 surveyed countries, but it is astounding. It averaged 11.3 deaths per 100,000 people, and that's dating back to 2010. There are, of course, more drivers on the road now, and even coming home from Seoul today, I saw an accident, and that was between a passenger bus and an SUV. Didn't see any fatalities there, but it was gruesome. The bus front was crushed, the door was hanging off, and the SUV was essentially squished in half. It was unsightly. It was very bad. Also, out of Korea, regarding the power deficiency that we're all expecting because of the nuclear power shutdowns. In January, the power companies will start an optional power consumption peak system that imposes an extra utility fee of up to 5 times the normal rate during peak hours. That is a huge amount of money, and people can see their bills skyrocket. However, it should also be noted that there will be a 10% discount in electricity consumed during normal hours. The government is also hoping to restart by the years in the Yongwon nuclear power plant, the number 5 and number 6 reactors in Jeolla province. Oh, I tell you, I am getting more and more nervous about the winter because at every turn there seems to be a new situation where the power system is being stated that it cannot support the draw. They're looking at raising rates. They're saying there could be rolling blackouts, and the temperatures are starting to drop. We were out filming today for Korea Today, and it was already 5 below Celsius as the sun was coming up. There was snow on the ground. The ski resorts are already open. And quite frankly, I wouldn't even call it cold outside. I'm still walking around with a jacket that's open, no beanie, not for long extended periods of time because my head does get cold, but it's not what I would call really, really cold. It's not long underwear weather yet here in Seoul. But if the temperature does drop, and they are predicting probably one of the coldest winters on record, a rolling blackout where you don't have the ondol on, you don't have your space heaters on, could pose serious problems. So I am very thankful that the government is really on board of trying to get these reactors up and going. In other related news to it, authorities are going to seek to cut power consumption to people who really use a lot. And there's going to be some kill switches in place so that if power drops below 400,000 kilowatts, non-essential power consumers, public buildings, will just be shut off until the power can be raised back up to an acceptable level where people can consume it normally. And finally, this is actually huge news this week, and it revolves around public transportation. If you've been following me at any length here in Korea, you know that I love public transportation. It is amazing. The buses, the subways, the taxis, the trains, the infrastructure is incredible. Countries have a lot to learn from Korea. However, a bill has made its way through Parliament and is going to be set forth to vote this upcoming Friday. Well, I guess this past Friday by the time this podcast goes up. But I'm recording this on Wednesday. Essentially, what this bill states is it's going to elevate the status of taxis to public transportation. And bus drivers are not happy about it. In fact, as this has cleared committee and moving forward to a parliamentary vote, bus drivers, all the unions have called for a nationwide strike for at least 24 hours. And this is going to include over 50,000 different buses. So Seoul and Busan are going to be heavily impacted. The reason why this is such a big issue here are there are a number of issues. So let's talk about the first one. Taxi drivers are saying that they are forced to have significantly undervalued rates. And to give you an idea, the drop rate for a taxi is around 2,300 won, which is less than $2.30. It's cheap. To go from one end of Seoul to the other is maybe 6,000 won, 10,000 won, depending on the route and what you have to do. They say that because they are forced to have this low rate, they need extra funds that is available to public forms of transportation to offset the operating costs. They're also asking for access to bus-only lanes in the city to help speed up their travel through the city and allow them to get more fares. Bus drivers, on the other hand, are saying that they don't want the taxi cabs in the bus lanes because it's going to hamper their travel. And they are also saying that their already incredibly low rates really cuts into their profit margin. A standard fare in Korea is 1,200 won, and that just went up this year after, I think, a 4-year freeze at 900 won. It was incredibly low. And it's still low. You can go from one side of the city to the other for essentially $1.50. I don't know of another country that has that kind of transportation. So you have numerous parties trying to get government dollars. This bill has not gone forward for a public discussion. It was essentially rushed through committee, and people, pundits, shall we say, are saying that the reason why this is moving forward so fast is because both parties in Korea want to shore up the taxi cab driver vote. It's all about the election. It's all about money. It's all about the election. The Lee Myung-bak administration isn't necessarily keen on the idea, but they're going out. They won't be here after the election. It's the parties that are in place, the candidates that are in place that are jockeying for position, and they're the ones that are really moving forward to this. Personally, I don't think taxi cabs should be listed as public forms of transportation. They are a public form of transportation, but they aren't in the same category as buses and subways. Those are mass transportation. This is essentially contracting with a driver to take you from point A to point B. In the city where you have lots of cars, you need those bus lanes to be for buses. Taxi cabs already dart in and out of traffic, they already cut buses off. Giving them access to the lanes would just cause more problems. However, on the highways where you also have bus-only lanes, I say yes, give cab drivers access to those lanes because traffic comes to a standstill. And if you're paying 30, 40, 50,000 won to go from one of the outlying cities into Seoul and vice versa, you're going to pay even more with traffic stoppage fees. So on those instances, yes, give cab drivers access to the bus-only lanes, but not in the cities. I really hope that this is resolved quickly and without a prolonged strike, because as someone without a car, I rely heavily on public transportation and especially the buses because I value that service above all else. I very rarely take a cab, and it's only in extreme instances that I take a cab because for me, the buses go where I need to go. They go there on a reliable schedule and they are incredibly affordable. In North Korean news, Japan and North Korea have also begun talks regarding what Tokyo has said are the abduction issue. Now, if you're not familiar with this, for some reason, and I really don't understand this, it's been said that North Korea is abducting Japanese tourists or Japanese nationals, even in Japan, and holding them. Now, these talks are taking place in Mongolia, and some of these instances, some of these abductions have dated back to the 70s or 80s. And a lot of times what Japan is stating that the abductees are taken to North Korea, they're brainwashed, sent back as agents of North Korea in Japan. One other issue related to this that is a pretty significant issue, I guess, I keep on saying issue, interesting, is that Japan and North Korea do not have formal diplomatic relations. And this has been, shall we say, the white elephant in the room. And the two countries really haven't had any kind of economic discussions or cultural exchanges since 2006, when the, I guess, most recent proliferation of nuclear arms and experiments have taken place in North Korea. So to actually sit these two countries down at a table in a somewhat neutral area to talk about an issue that has been going on for 40 plus years is pretty big news. And I really hope that North Korea stops abducting people. That's wrong on so many different levels. But I also hope that having this kind of dialogue is a sign of Kim Jong-un looking to reestablish ties with the international community so that we can finally bring true and long-lasting peace to the region. Diplomats also say that North Korea is suspected of shipping ballistic missiles to Syria. And this is, of course, a clear violation of UN sanctions, but also a sign that the sanctions in place by the UN are not effective. I've said time and time again, if you're going to go the sanction route, and if you want to isolate North Korea, that's one way to do it, you have to make sure that the sanctions work. For example, if you lock a child in a room and you say, don't come out of your room, but you put no mechanisms in place for the child to be confined to the room and they leave with no punishment, it's an ineffective method of disciplining a child. North Korea has several sanctions in place, but they always find ways to skirt around it to get what they need. There's an old line saying that life will find a way, from Jurassic Park, Jeff Goldblum. North Korea continuously finds ways to get what they need. So these sanctions really need to be evaluated. And if you're going to put a blockade in, if you're going to really block what North Korea is able to trade, then you need to put in the mechanism to physically stop it. And the UN has never done that. According to a South Korean newspaper, the Donga Ilbo, there is some wiretapping going on from North Korea, especially in the Gimpo and Gangwon areas. It's saying that North Korea 4th Corps, of Marines is able to tap into the wireless signals on those islands. So if you're in the area, be mindful of what you have going on there. It's pretty interesting that they'd want to do that, and that there's so much information coming across through intelligence channels of what North Korea is really capable of. I think a lot of people think that North Korea doesn't have a good army, and I would agree with that assessment. I think they're understaffed. I think they're undernourished. I think the technology, the mechanical side of their army is outdated. But as time and time has shown with attacks on South Korea, their cyber warfare is incredibly advanced and something that should really be looked at in terms of a global state. In some East Asian news, and I'm sure this will also anger a lot of people, both China and Japan are naming outcrops of rocks appearing on satellite maps. These regional disputes are just really getting out of hand. Japan has come out and named a number of different rocks appearing on different satellite images, especially in the disputed areas. And then the next day, as soon as they released the 11 names that they gave the rocks, China came out and named 70. I think 71 actually. This is really just got to stop. I'm all for naming places that are your own, but when they're in disputed areas and tensions are already raising to boiling point levels, you need to step back and think about what you're actually going to do. Those types of situations have a way, unfortunately, of spinning out of control and causing a lot of harm. Ministers from Japan, China, and South Korea are going to formally declare and start negotiations of a trilateral free trade agreement. The East Asia Summit is taking place in Cambodia, and all three countries say that a trilateral free trade agreement is really the best way to promote the economy in all three nations. And as I mentioned a few weeks ago, it looks like the first real step of separating the territorial disputes from the actual business of running countries and making sure that China, South Korea, and Japan have stable economies, which is of paramount given the worldwide recession that we've experienced. Hopefully, these governments will be able to continue to move forward and address important issues like this and not focus on the territorial disputes which have threatened economic stability in the past. Japan has canceled orders from Korea companies. Chinese tourists have canceled trips to Japan. That isn't the thing that is going to build relations. Working on this kind of agreement will, and isolating the disputes to diplomatic channels and hopefully lowering tensions overall will promote harmony in the region and really promote better environments for all. And finally, Japan's Prime Minister has dissolved the lower house of the Diet and is going to force a national election. Now, this is coming as Japan teeters on a return to a recession and increased tensions between Japan and its neighbors. So hopefully, those in Japan won't lose sight of the FTA and continue to build once the lower house has been reestablished. Most people in public opinion polls in Japan overwhelmingly predict that the Democratic Party of Japan, in power for the last 3 years, is now completely in disarray and will most likely lose the election. And to give you an idea how much people apparently do not like the Democratic Party, it has an approval rating of nearly 17%. A 17% approval rating is just astonishing. And that's a drop of 6% from last month. Prime Minister Noda is the 6th Prime Minister in that many years, and hopefully things will come together and Japan will sort things out, stabilize its economy. The FTA will pass, all three countries will finally live in harmony, and we can return to business as usual here in East Asia. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the news roundup this week. We'll return in just a moment. Welcome back, my friends. It is time for the Content Rewind, and this week we have had a lot of fun. The two mom videos. Mom goes to Gyeongbokgung. That was so much fun taking my mom to Gyeongbokgung. It's one of my favorite places in all of Korea, and I think you see not only my mom's excitement in the video, but you see, I think, why I love it so much. Gyeongbokgung, they call it the grandest of the grand, the North Palace. It was the first palace of the Chosun dynasty. There's so much history there. I think the tourism offers for foreigners is probably one of the best while there. And it's just phenomenal. It's great. The shows are great. And those that watched the video all the way through really got a kick out of my mom at the very end. I asked her, I put it point blankly to her as we were sitting by the library. A lot of people think that this is too touristy, they don't want to come, and she gave her honest opinion, her honest evaluation of it, and I said, oh, see, my mom tells you you should come, and she chimed in, yes, and I really do. So it was a great video. It was great to spend an entire day with her in Seoul. It was just a lot of fun, and looking at that video really made me remember finally the time that she was here and wish that she was back here again. I miss you, Mom. Friday's video was another day of just me and my mom in Gangnam, open Gangnam style. It was all GoPro. We just went out there and had a lot of fun. I just wanted to show her what the song was about, and we went to a few different places. We walked around Gangnam Row, we walked around some back alleys, we had a great lunch at the COEX Mall, took her to the aquarium, we went to Costco, Youngjae Costco, the #1 most profitable Costco in the world, and she got to push the trolley up and down the coasters, the escalator trolley ramp thingy, and she had a blast with it. And she was such a good sport because if you watched it to the end, you know that she danced to Gangnam Style. On Facebook, I put up the video a while back with an unedited version of the song, but for YouTube, I thought I better pitch change it just to protect myself a little bit to make it a pure parody. And I gotta say, I like the raised pitch of the song. It was just really funny, and she was having so much fun. She originally didn't want to do it. We had been talking about it for so long, and she was practicing her horse dance. And I said, all right, let's do it. You're in front of the Gangnam Station sign. Let's do it. And she was like, maybe not. And then you just saw the twinkle in her eye, and she just went all in for it. And it was just so much fun to see her dance like that. It was a lot of fun. Those two videos are by far probably my favorite videos that we shot while she was here. Next week we have 2 more videos, the last 2 videos of her stay, and I'm gonna be sad when they're gone because I had such a great time while she was here. On the Korea blog, we revisited Paul Ajashi, his neck of the woods in Itaewon. Again, if you haven't read that article or you haven't seen the video, go over to the Korea blog, link is in the show notes, and check it out. If you think you know Itaewon, I really encourage you to look at this article, look at the video, and see Paul's Itaewon. I, for one, really did not want to go to Itaewon because of the reputation it has for the parties, the clubs, the hooker hill. It's just not something I'm interested in. But Paul has lived there for over a decade, knows the back alleys, knows the streets, knows the restaurants, and that's what impressed me the most. His knowledge of the restaurants is just uncanny. And in the video, in the article itself as well, I quoted him, and I'm going to quote him again too, because it's not how I look at life, but it's a way that he does and so many other, and really defines the way that he looks at Itaewon. And he says that there are some people that eat to live, he lives to eat. And when you see the places that he took me, the food that he showed me, the taste, the textures, the wide range of flavors, you really understand that. And the food was unbelievable. It was fantastic. And I can't thank Paul enough for agreeing to be on that episode earlier this year. It was fantastic. So please do check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. I also uploaded a couple of vlogs, most notably for myself is completing the half marathon non-jog here in Dongtan. It wasn't any race, it was just something I wanted to do, and I was just very happy to be able to finish it. I really can't add anything to it. The vlog itself has all my thoughts in it, but yeah, so thank you again everyone who was cheering me on and giving me words of support during my training. I've kind of taken most of this week off because of a few different things, but I'm looking at trying to get back into it in about a week and a half. I'm not going to have really a lot of time to train for my next event, which will be in June of 2013, but my goal really is to run about 10 miles a day for the foreseeable future to kind of build up my stamina and to build up my legs for this long event I want to do next year. I also uploaded the video about North Korean food and heading out to the Seoul Lantern Festival. I shot that entirely with the GoPro, and it's going to be somewhat of a new series I'm going to do. A few years ago I did a video that was quite popular on my channel called Life in Korea, a Vlog. And it was just random scenes of me in Korea and narrating over it. I really liked that video. I've also gotten a lot of requests about longer form videos showing life in Korea. So I wanted to bring that back. I wanted to use the GoPro. I have 2 cameras. I love the footage that I'm able to capture with them. And I have a few new toys as well that go with the GoPro that you'll be learning about in probably a month or so. And I really wanted to capture life as it happens in Korea in a different way than the the QiRanger vlog channel does. Because that has, in addition to becoming more of a Q&A and a thought process, I wanted to get back into doing life as it happens, travel vlogs, on Fridays. So things that I think are interesting and more of a raw feel, more life as it happens, longer form videos like the North Korea one, I think would show life in a different way and allow for a narrative and some other fun things to occur. So be looking for that coming in December, as I have a few things that I've received that I can't wait to show you. I'm really jazzed. We're gonna film one of them coming up, and I can't wait. It's gonna be so good. I'll give you a hint. It's an adult beverage. Yes, an adult beverage from Korea, and I'm totally excited about it. I've shown some friends what they're in store for, and even they're excited, and they're in different parts of the world. So this one I'm really jazzed about, and I hope it does well. On Wednesday, today, the day I'm recording this, I actually had a television appearance on Korea Today, the morning show from 7 to 8 a.m. on Arirang television, and I went bungee jumping. And that was a lot of fun because it was my idea to go bungee jumping, and I got to go bungee jumping. It was a long day. Idami, who is the on-site reporter, went with us, and she, as always, leads this segment. And she was having some reservations about bungee jumping. This was at Spoland in Gapyeong, Gyeonggi Province. So about an hour and a half outside of Seoul. So we had to leave at 4:30 in the morning from Arirang Tower, drive out there, get out there by 6, meet everyone, get everything set up, get mic'd up. Then she had her connections, the first connection down at street level. We got in the harnesses, went up to the 40-meter tower, do the second connection up there, where she really decided, hey, I'm not going to jump. So since it was my idea, I said, I will jump no matter what, so don't worry about it. So during the third connection, she was back down again, and she tossed it back up to me to jump, and I jumped. Now, earlier this year, I did the Leap of Faith video over in Bundang, which was another bungee jumping where I used a GoPro to film myself as I went down, but this was live on television, mic'd up, boom, there you go. It went completely smooth with one exception. The idea for the video or the broadcast was as I was jumping off the platform to yell Korea Today, the name of the program. But because of the tower and where I was situated, the mic signal got lost. So all you hear on my way down is, "Hey!" So I always joked, "I'm the Fonz, hey!" But it was a lot of fun. Thanks again for letting me come out to Korea Today. I had a blast. I look forward to working with you again should the opportunity arise. It was just a lot of fun. All the staff over at Korea Today and Arirang Television, fabulous. I can't say enough. If you really want to know more about life in Korea from a news show perspective, and you like Good Morning America, you like the Today Show, those kinds of morning shows, Korea Today, the hosts are fantastic. The content is great. If you don't have Arirang on your cable or satellite provider, they put all the clips up on YouTube. So if you go to the show notes and click on my video of me bungee jumping, you'll be able to go to their channel page and subscribe and catch them. They put all the different segments from Monday through Friday shows up on YouTube. It's a good deal. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is the Content Rewind. Welcome back. It is time for the Quintessential Quartet. And coming off the heels of my half marathon non-jog, I thought I would revisit the topic of running, since my good friend Mark, Find Me in Kurume, is trying to get into running, and he is slowly building up his distances. So I thought I'd talk about 4 things that I have learned and would recommend to anyone wanting to get into running as a fitness program. And number 1 is, I would say, take it slow. For many years, and this goes back to junior high and high school, it was always about how fast you can run. I believe in my PE class that to get a C on your mile run, which we did every Friday, you had to run better than 8 minutes and 15 seconds. If you ran 7 minutes, you got a C. 6 minutes, you got a B. And 5 minutes and 30 seconds, you got an A. I've never been able to run that fast. The fastest mile I think I've ever ran, and this was maybe 8 years ago in Arizona, I ran a 7-minute mile, and I thought I was going to die. At the time, I was actually wearing a Polar heart rate monitor that I had to monitor my heart rate when I was exercising, and it clocked out at over 200. I could literally feel my chest beating. I thought my heart was going to explode. At one point, I thought I was going to die. It was not a pretty sight. I was literally scared to death. From that moment on, I ceased trying to run fast. It was not what my goal was. My goal was always completing the distance. And coming back to Korea and coming full forward to addressing this run, I lost sight of that a little bit. When I was running the 6.4 kilometer loops, I was averaging about 5 minutes and 15 seconds per kilometer, which is a pretty fast pace for me. That's maybe 8, close to 8, maybe 7.5 miles per hour. So shall we say? And I always wanted to beat that. And I got really down on myself if I wasn't running at that pace. But as I was increasing distance in preparation for the half marathon run, I really found myself hovering around the 5:30. And I kept on having to remind myself that the goal was to complete the distance and feel good and healthy about it, rather than trying to increase time. My goal wasn't to compete in a race against other individuals or for time. It was to simply finish. And that really helped me get through a lot of difficulties, because there are times where I just didn't feel right. But I needed to go out and train, and I needed to go out and run. So my mantra was finish, do your best, and finish. And more often than not, I was able to run fairly comfortably after a while and complete it in a reasonable amount of time. My average right now for 6.4 kilometers, 9 kilometers, 12 kilometers, 15 kilometers, even the half marathon pace was right around 5 minutes and 30 seconds per kilometer. Now, to give you an idea, 6 minutes per kilometer is about the same as 10 kilometers per hour, which is 6 miles an hour, 10-minute mile. So it's not fast, it isn't slow, and to be able to sustain the same pace for 13 miles is huge. And that's exactly what the goal I was after, and very pleased with myself. So tip number 1, don't be so rushed in to try and improve your speed. Improve your fitness. Take it slow. Take it slow. Be concerned about the distance. Be concerned about how you feel, which leads me into item number 2, the 10% rule. I mentioned this in my after the race vlog, and I'll mention it again here. It's probably the best way to increase distance. The 10% rule is probably the best way to avoid injury as you're learning to run. And that says that every week you take your mileage and you just increase it 10%. It helps your body avoid injury, helps your body get used to the distance, and it helps your body to increase stamina. So if you're running 1 mile this week, next week you run 1.1. And then increase it 10%, so 1.2. It takes a long time for you to get up to big distances, but you are physically able to do so without injury. So if you're running a mile a day and you do that 4 days a week, that's 4 miles. So the next week you run 4.5 miles. And then you run 5 miles the next week, and then 5.5, and then 6. And so forth. And before long, you're up to 10, 15, 20 miles a week by the end of the month or so. That way, you don't hurt yourself. Number 3, you got to stick with it. If you're going to make a change, and this goes for any habit, you need to do it consistently for at least 3 weeks. Starting a new physical fitness program is incredibly difficult. So you really, really, really got to stick with it and go for the gusto and just mentally wrap your head around to it and get going. And finally, have a goal in mind and make a commitment to go to it. Number 3, number 4, go together and just really stick with it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's time to set course for adventure once more. And this week, well, it's just me, and we're going to do a little test here with the microphones and camera to see how well this works. But I have a special treat in store for you. And since the winter is coming here to Korea and many places around the Northern Hemisphere, I have a little glass of scotch to help warm us up and prepare us for a delicious and delightful excursion to one of my favorite winter getaways, Boracay. Cheers, my friends. Now, you've probably heard me talk about Boracay before because that was the place we went to last winter. And I gotta tell you, we had a lot of fun there. It was an exciting and deeply romantic place to be. Now, Boracay is in the Philippines, and it's actually on, well, it's its own island, but it's just north of Panay and in the province of Aklan. Now, that doesn't really mean a lot to you if you're not familiar with the Philippines, but it's about 200 miles south of Manila. And it's actually kind of cool because it's this tropical paradise that has been transformed into not only a great tourist destination, but in and of itself, there's not a lot of too touristy stuff there yet. If you take a look at some of the other locations in the Philippines, like Cebu or Manila, or even Palawan, as it's been recently named one of the new 7 wonders, there's a lot of infrastructure there. But Boracay still has that rustic feeling to it, that rustic, I guess that rustic and just island look and feel of it. You go there and you're instantaneously drawn back in time to a time and place and pace, most importantly pace, that is simply much more relaxed in the perfect way to get away. So let me tell you a little bit more about Boracay. Now, it's originally home to the Ati tribe. Now, if you remember from my videos at the beginning of 2012, not only did we do Boracay, but we also went to Calibo for the Atihan festival. And that was the festival celebrating El Santo Niño and the conversion of the indigenous people to Christianity. And so there is a huge tie-in to that culture on Boracay. Philippines is, of course, the only Asian country that is Christian. So everywhere you go on the island, you have this robust feeling around January leading up to the Atihan Festival. In fact, a lot of the people who work on Boracay go back to Calibo and Iloilo for the Atihan Festival. Now, Iloilo is a city south of Calibo that also has their own Atihan Festival. But the origin of the name Boracay seems a little bit fuzzy. Probably one of the leading and probably most accurate ways to describe the origin of the name is the word borak, which is from the Filipino local dialect meaning cotton, and it's probably used to refer to the amazing white powdery beaches that you have all over the island. The island itself is not very big. It has only about 12,000 people on it and only about 3,000 square miles. So it is incredibly tiny, which brings me to how in the heck do you get to Boracay? Because if you're traveling to the Philippines and you want to get to Boracay, you really have to plan ahead. Now, there are no air services on Boracay. None. The only way to get to Boracay is through a ferry, which I'll talk about in a second. So if you're flying into the area, into Aklan, you either have to fly into Caticlan, at which point you're flying on this incredibly small turboprop jet that the runway is so short, you're actually limited to 10 kilograms of luggage, period. That's not luggage plus carry-ons. That's period. You don't get anything else. You pretty much, it got to fit in the overhead compartment or it's not coming on board the plane. It's small. And you fly in, you come out over the ocean, and then you see the runway, and then all of a sudden, it's time to land! And you're thinking to myself, oh my gosh, please stop, please stop, please stop. And the plane stops, taxis into the gate, and then you're off. The other way to get to Caticlan, which is going to be your ultimate destination, because this is where the ferries are to Boracay, you have to fly into Calibo, which is what I've mentioned a few times before. A great destination in and of itself. But flying into Calibo is an international airport, so you can take whatever luggage requirements or luggage allowances your airline has. There are a few airlines, international airlines that fly into there. Korean Air for one, and of course Cebu Pacific, which is what we fly a lot of times. But if you fly into Calibo, you then have about a 200 peso van ride from the Calibo airport to the jetty terminal at Caticlan, and that's about 2 hours. So you have to really consider what you want to do. Do you want to fly directly into Calibo with not a lot of luggage, or do you want to fly into Calibo with, say, 25 kilograms of luggage if you're going on an extended trip, and then bus it to Caticlan? Once you get to the ferry terminal, you have to buy a ferry ticket, and you're taken across, it's maybe a half hour at most ride, on a small little ferry. It's cramped, and they just pack people in there. Pack. You're just packed in there, almost like sardines. But it's cool because you're out on the water, and you're looking out, and it's beautiful sun and clouds, and you're just having all kinds of fun. And any luggage you have goes on top. And the cool thing is that there's so many people helping you on and off these ferries that when you put the luggage on top, they're there to make sure it doesn't fall into the ocean. So you don't have to worry about that. And then when you get off, they help you off the boat as well. So it's great. Once you're on the island, then it starts to sink in that you really are in paradise. And it's time to get to your accommodations. So there are a lot of different places to stay on Boracay. There are several 5-star resorts. There are several backpacker places. There are several different resort type areas that have been developed all over the island. 3 come to mind. But of course, along the white beaches, or I should say the white beach, is probably the most popular and where most people go to stay. And it has, I want to say, a unique way of describing where things are. As Boracay was developed, the first area that was developed was Station 1, where the boats would come in. The next area to be developed was Station 2, and finally Station 3. And the further up in the queue you are, so if you're at Station 1, you're going to have very nice resorts, very nice restaurants. That's where D Mall is, not the mall, but D Mall, with fantastic places to buy cameras, souvenirs, great restaurants, great pubs. And in fact, the only Starbucks that I know of that's on the white beach is there. And you can actually buy a Starbucks mug for Boracay that you can't buy anywhere else in the Philippines. So when I was there last year, they didn't have that yet. So when I go back this year, I'm going to get it. Oh yeah. So that's Station 1. Station 2, you have more restaurants, but it's kind of thought of as the nightlife area. Again, 5-star restaurants. Shakey's Pizza with the Mondo potatoes are there. Seoul Shikdang, which I did a video, an article about last year, is located there. Again, great food, great places to stay. Station 3 is maybe a half-hour's walk down from Station 1, so maybe 1 or 2 kilometers distance between Station 1 and Station 3. And this is where you're going to find more of your budget accommodations. But don't let the word budget factor into your view of these accommodations. Last year we stayed at the Orchids Resort, which has, I would say, like a backpackers type feel. There are aircon rooms. There are rooms without aircons. There are, communal rooms in some cases. And then they also have villas at this place. And that was really nice because for 2,000 pesos, which is incredibly cheap, we had a 2-story villa, complete with kitchen, complete with internet, complete with stove, and we also had a gas burner range. We had television upstairs, downstairs, aircon, shower, you name it, we had it, and it was private. It was phenomenal. There are a number of other just as fantastic places in the area. Closer to the beach, the Orchids Resort that we stayed at was about maybe 5 minutes walk right off the beach. There are a number of other places, the same price, the same quality, in the same area. And it's fantastic. So think about what you're going to do, how you're going to spend your time, and factor that in to where you want to stay. Do you want to be in Station 1, Station 2, Station 3? We personally really enjoyed Station 3 because we could go out and enjoy the nightlife till 1 o'clock in the morning or so, then make our way back to Station 3 and our accommodations while everyone else was still living it up until the sun came up and we weren't disturbed by the noise. So that is one recommendation for you. In terms of getting around on the island, you have a number of options. Number one, and probably the most widely used form of transportation, well, probably the Philippines, to be honest with you, is the tricycle. And I'm not talking about the tricycle that you pedal with your feet. I'm talking about the Filipino tricycle. Now, this is essentially a motorbike with a huge sidecar on it. Now, if you've ever been to Manila, you've seen tricycles there. But these tricycles in Aklan, specifically Kalibo and Boracay, are huge by comparison. The ones in Manila fit 2 average sized people, and I'm not average size. The ones in Aklan are like, you can think of them as RVs. They're that huge. They're made to fit 6 people. They have a front compartment in which Joe and I can both sit in very comfortably. And then they have a back compartment, which is perfect for storing backpacks, and even up to 4 additional people that may be traveling with you. Then, of course, you can have someone sit behind the driver on the motorbike itself. So these things are massive. And unlike, say, a taxi cab, tricycles you pay by the person. So depending on how far you want to go, it may be 10 pesos, 20 pesos, 30 pesos to get from A to B. And if the tricycle isn't filled, they may stop over and get additional riders so they can make their money. There are a lot of tricycle drivers everywhere you go in the Philippines. Boracay is no exception. So they really need to try and get their money from as many fares as they can get, since in some places in the Philippines they have, I want to say, driving restrictions, so that if your license plate ends in certain numbers, that's the day that you can drive in a certain area. And if you don't have that, you got to be off the road. So it's a great way. Also on Boracay, you can of course rent out scooters to traipse around the island yourself and visit everything. So no matter where you go, it's a great time. While we're on Boracay, typically what we do is either walk along the beach and get everywhere we need to by walking, take a tricycle, or if we're going to do a lot of daytime activities, what we will do is actually hire a driver for the day. And that's also quite cheap depending on how many hours you want, but look into that as well if you want to go from the extreme north side of the island down to the south and around back and through it and so forth. So you have lots of options, and if you're staying at either a backpacker's hotel or at one of the resorts, they can help set that up with you as well. And many times they usually have someone on site at one of these resorts that does that as a side job, so you can maybe negotiate with them on the down low. In terms of food, oh my gosh, the food in the Philippines is absolutely amazing, and I have to drink to that. But I'm going to talk about 3 foods in particular. The first one is my favorite breakfast food in the Philippines, and that's pandesal. Now, pandesal, I guess if you've never had it before, think of it as a delicious, soft dinner roll that's a little bit crunchy on the outside, a little bit bigger than just a dinner roll. They're incredibly cheap, a few pesos for each one. And it's not uncommon for people to buy 50, 60, 70 pandesals in the morning. In fact, at bakeries, if you're not there first thing in the morning, and when I mean first thing in the morning, I'm talking 5 a.m. when they open up, they will be gone by 8, 9 o'clock. They're just gone. You can't have anything at all. They're great in and of themselves. Just snacking on a pandesal is great. A lot of times when Joe and I do road trips in the Philippines, that's what we get to snack on because they are so good. And it's one of the things I really miss being here in Korea, is just really good pandesal. The more time that passes that we get closer to going back to the Philippines, the more I am relishing the thought of having pandesal. I could just go and live off pandesal. It's that good. The other thing that is not so much unique to the Boracay area as it is to the Philippines in general is lechon. And this is, if you love pork, you will absolutely love lechon. Lechon is a special way of preparing pig, and it's cooked, and the skin the skin becomes this crispiness that you can break off, and it tastes it's just so good. There are several different restaurants that do it in so many different ways, and the way that it can be prepared for you is just amazing. It's one of my favorite dishes to have while we're in the Philippines. There are, of course, some other local delicacies, but the one thing that really blew me away while we were there last time were the pancakes. Now, a little background on pancakes, because I grew up with pancakes. I love making pancakes. When I was a young child, and I want to say 7 or 8 years old, I used to help my mother make pancakes for breakfast on the weekends. But I have never had pancakes like I have had pancakes in Boracay. And let me set the stage for you. A lot of the different breakfast restaurants will make pancakes for you. But there's one in particular. It doesn't have a name. It's actually this shed. Not even a shed. It's a stall right on the beach as we were coming out of the alleyway that led up to our villa area. And it was 2 young ladies, both from Calibo, because they were going to go to the Atian Festival. And they had a place where they would make little sandwiches for you, make some pancakes, you could have some coffee. But there were no tables or chairs there. Their tables and chairs were underneath a canopy right on the beach. And I'm talking 10 feet from the crashing surf, rolling over that beautiful white powdery sand. So for $3, I was able to get a 3 centimeter thick, 30 centimeter in diameter chocolate pancake. Oh yeah, it was that big. It was soft, it was fluffy. They served it with wonderful maple syrup. The coffee that they gave me was hand dripped. It was amazing. And that even wasn't the only time we had that. We went to a couple of different restaurants in Boracay, and every single time the pancakes were just ginormous. There's one backpackers hotel, I believe it's Dave's Straw Hat, and their cantina serves up their pancakes are a little bit smaller, but they give you 2. And I couldn't even finish them. I mean, that's how big these things are. And oh my gosh, it was amazing. I think I need to go run another half marathon just to work off the calories I'm going to get from eating all this food. Also, throughout the island, there are a number of different types of restaurants you can have to enjoy. Right now, a lot of people from Russia go to Boracay. In fact, that's the #1 tourism demographic on the island. Number 2 is actually Korea. About 35% of the tourist population on Boracay is from Korea. So the Korean restaurants there are just phenomenal. It's just like eating Korean food here in Korea, but with that beach setting. And I gotta tell you, after a long, long day of being out in the sun, whether it be scuba diving, boating, doing the banana boat type stuff, parasailing, a pajan on the beach with some makgeolli, that's the stuff. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the things you can do there. I already mentioned parasailing, flying fish, which is a huge yellow flat rectangular thing that is pulled behind a boat that catches air and flings everybody up into the air. One of the great activities we did last year that I recommend to actually a few of my friends that went to Boracay was zorbing. Now, zorbing is, think of yourself going in a giant hamster ball. It's this ginormous plastic ball that's hollow on the inside. They throw a little water in to make it coat the plastic so you don't stick to it. And 2 people go inside and they push you down a hill. And then you splash land into a pool. It's phenomenal. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. We went scuba diving a lot of times, and Joe got certified there. They have a lot of dive shops all along the White Beach and in some of the other developed areas. They're all PADI 5-star facilities. The instruction is phenomenal. The staff there that we went to at one of our places came from all over. There was a guy from South Africa, a few different Filipinos, an Australian that was there. And they're just some of the kindest people. And the great thing about those places is they tend to have bars as well. So after a dive, you can have a couple beers and just hang out and enjoy your day. So diving has a lot of it, some helicopter tours as well, but just a lot of fun. If you want to be busy, there are enough activities that will keep you busy. If you just want to sit on the beach, there's enough activities to say, okay, you guys go do that. I'm going to go sit on the beach and enjoy myself. One of my favorite activities to do, and this is what I would do while Joe was out getting her scuba certification, is I would get massages. Now, these massages last year were running about 350 pesos for an hour-long massage. It didn't really matter where you went to along the beach. All the places had the same kind of pricing range. And that goes for diving too. The prices are pretty much fixed. That way no one can undercut one another, which I really appreciate. Also, before I talk about massages, going back to scuba diving, if you're here in Korea and want to get certified as a scuba diver, there are a number of scuba dive shops on Boracay that cater specifically to Koreans. They have Korean staff members there, so everything is in Korean. So it would make things easier for you if you're not proficient in English. But going back to massage, a lot of places run 24 hours a day. You can get in-room service if you need to, but a lot of times you'll be walking around the street along the beach, and you'll hear "Mum sir massage," and a lot of times I was thinking, I think I need a massage. I think I need to help the stress just flow away from my body. And I would go into the clinic and have a great massage, a very relaxing massage. Not really what I would call a strenuous deep tissue massage, but a lot of needling, I shouldn't say needling, a lot of trigger point therapy, and a lot of, they use a lot of camphor, almost like tiger balm, in their massage oils, which I found to be pretty much ubiquitous across all the different shops I went to. And on a few occasions, I was able to go to one massage place in the morning and had a really good experience there. So when Joe was finished with her dive lessons for the day, we'd have dinner, and then I'd take her back there. So I'd get 2 massages in a day. Oh yeah, 2 massages in a day. Can't go wrong with that. But if you're looking for a great location with lots to do, definitely I would say Boracay is the place. So there you have it. This week's set course for adventure, where I will be spending my January. Can't wait. Boracay in the Philippines. And ladies and gentlemen, that will just about do it for this week's podcast. Thank you so much for spending part of your day, part of your week with me on YouTube or iTunes, or downloading the MP3 from QiRanger.com. Now, next week will be another special abbreviated podcast because I have another guest coming to Korea. Now, this person is John Pham Pants from YouTube, a good friend of mine from Chicago, Illinois, who I've actually never met in person, who has never been to Asia, and he's choosing to come to Korea first before going to Japan. So he's going to be staying with us for a few days, and I'm really, really jazzed about showing him some of what I love about Korea. And since I'm doing that, I won't have a lot of time to record a full podcast for you. However, I do have a very special guest lined up for next week, and I hope you will enjoy talking to him as much as I am looking forward to doing so. But until then, thank you again so much for giving me feedback by sending your email to podcast@QiRanger.com, or if you have questions, you can email me those at questions@QiRanger.com. To keep up with everything I do here in Korea and around the world, just follow QiRanger on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. But until next week, remember to be true to yourself and always be awesome.